I would like to begin by acknowledging the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples on whose traditional territory we are privileged to gather this evening. And I'd like to issue a very warm welcome to you all to the Siegel Graduate School, which is part of our vibrant SFU downtown campus. My name's Andrew Petter, and I'm president of Simon Fraser University. And it's a real privilege to be able to be here to welcome you to the annual Munro Lecture. The Munro Lecture is a lecture series that enables us to bring leading scholars to Simon Fraser University and to the community, and to share with the community stimulating ideas and thoughts from scholars from around the world. And we're very privileged this evening to have with us the person in whose name this lecture series was created, Jock Munro, our former vice president academic and a renowned economist. We're also privileged to have a former president who was instrumental in SFU making the decision to come into downtown Vancouver and really set the stage for the vision of the university we hold today, the vision of an engaged university, indeed Canada's most community-engaged research university, and that's President Emeritus Jack Blaney right here. Well, as many of you know, we have made it our vision as a university to be that engaged university, and not just locally. Our tagline is engaging the world, and it's in that spirit of international engagement that we are privileged to have with us this evening Professor S. Parasuraman, who comes to us and is going to speak to us on the provocative question, can India be the hope for the troubled world? I want to acknowledge the support that we've received in developing our international relationships with India from a really extraordinary body that was established about 10 years ago, the India Advisory Council. That council, made up of people from South Asia within the Metro Vancouver area, has provided wonderful guidance to the university in strengthening our relations with the South Asian community here in Greater Vancouver, but also giving us guidance in terms of reaching out and building relationships with India, which we have most assuredly done. And it is indeed through those relationships that we were able to make the connection with the Tata Institute of Social Sciences and with our guest speaker this evening. Of course, our relationships with India also take other forms. We have over the past decade attracted about 1,500 students from India to Simon Fraser University. Indeed, the student population from India is the fastest growing amongst our international student population. We've also been privileged to attract many leading scholars in a number of different venues and disciplines from India. In fact, Professor Parasuraman, who is currently teaching in our School of International Studies, is our 21st Indian visiting scholar. And some very good news from a few weeks ago. Two wonderful supporters of the university, Hari and Madhu Varshni, made a magnificent donation which will create the Hari and Madhu Varshni Visiting Scholars Program in Indian Studies. And that means we can look forward to many future such lectures with scholars coming to us from India. So it's with that good news in mind that we look forward to tonight's presentation. There will be a chance after the lecture for you to raise questions, and we'll have a microphone or two brought around to facilitate that. And we'll have some time for questions, but there will also be a reception afterwards, and I understand there's going to be some nice eats. Not too much, because we are, of course, very frugal and fiscally constrained, but enough to whet your appetite for more questions and conversation, hopefully. With that, let me tell you a little bit about our guest speaker for this evening. Professor Parasuraman has been the director and vice-chancellor of the Tata Institute of Social Sciences in Mumbai, India since 2004. In fact, the institute has multiple campuses across India. He has, for more than 3 decades, had experience as an educator and researcher in areas such as rural development, education, health, public policy, governance, and I'm naming only a few of his multiple areas of expertise and specialty. He's held key positions in the World Bank, Oxfam, ActionAid International, and the United Nations, and he's worked on inclusive development at the micro and macro level. Truly someone with extraordinary breadth and depth of experience. In terms of his academic background, he has a master's in anthropology from the University of Pune and a doctorate in demography from the University of Mumbai. He's been a United Nations Fellow on Population and Development at the Institute of Social Studies, The Hague, and he holds an honorary doctorate from Assam University. So with all of that, please join me in giving a very warm Vancouver Simon Fraser University welcome to Professor S. Parasuraman.
Thank you, Professor, for that wonderful words. Very warm greetings to all of you, very eminent people.
Adjust the microphone.
Yeah. What I would do is to talk on the topic for about 40 minutes, and then the President said that we'll open it up for discussion. The first part of it would look at what is wrong with the world. Okay, that is the first part. Now, now once we are able to establish what is wrong with the world, we will find out what is wrong with India, and then how that country can be a hope for the world. I think that is how we are going to do. Quite a lot of my second part of the talk would deal with what the Tata Institute of Social Sciences has been doing within the country. So, we are a microcosm of whatever happens in the country. So that way, I will be able to relate to the work which we do and how they have implications to the future. Now, what is the dominant paradigm of development? The dominant paradigm of development would tell you that, every nation state would move from predominantly agriculture to largely industrial, predominantly rural to largely urban, and where majority of the workers would be self-employed to a more prosperous society that is predominantly urban and industrial, where most workers are employees. What Marx would call it as proletarians. All of us are employees of somebody. Okay. In the process, what happens is that the self-employed and small producers are squeezed out of access to and control over the means of production. And so they would be out of the process of production as well as the control over the production as such. And they form a vast majority of what you can call it as a commodified labor. They can be hired and fired. There's nothing much will be left. Now, if you look at, is it anything new we are talking about? I was looking at the Scottish political economist Patrick Callaghan, in 1806, he said that historically, the transition is bound to involve prolonged periods of, non-inclusive development. Okay, during which some people will accumulate, a lot of people will lose access to and control over the means of production. Okay, and that is what he said about the England of 18th century. And if you were to look at that, it sounds very, very close today. I think there are some saying, whether you look at the Marx or you look at Callaghan, you look at Adam Smith, I think you can see them talking about today. So what we have reached a world whereby of extreme inequality. According to Oxfam's recent work, 62 individuals increased their wealth by about $500 billion, and their net worth is about $1.7 trillion. In the meantime, the wealth of the poorest people reduced by about $1 trillion. That's about 38%. In other words, the financial crisis did bring a lot many people to poverty line, lot many people to depend upon social security. Again, that is also being squeezed out. But in contrast, the richest appear to have increased their wealth during this period. It's very strange, actually. The rich people have become richer. And capitalizing on increasing the asset value, only they can have access to. But they only have, the kind of interest rate that exists in much of Western nations. I think they have a great chance of accumulating wealth. So globalization, if I want to, the globalization and the technological advancement has contributed to increasing the class diversification. Class differentials have expanded. The rich and the poor, the distance have expanded. And that is through the new liberal order. Whether you look at the institutions that were created for working on the neoliberalism, or the rules and regulations that were created, all were done by the United States of America with their allies. It's their creation, whether it's a World Bank or IMF, that were in the forefront of structuring economics of the world, or the World Trade Organization came in to fortify most of the regulations. So that has been the world order that we have been subjected to. Now, what has happened, this whole process, what has happened is that it has created a large number of people who are not working, who are not, their engagement in the society and the economy is not so very important, and their number is large. And certainly, they want to belong. All of us would want to belong, isn't it? We want to belong to the society. We would want to be engaged in the economy as such. But what has happened in this process of accumulation of wealth is that, and creation of inequality meant that some people have got lots of wealth, a whole lot of people got displaced from lands and livelihoods and access to resources, and they want to be needed. There's excluded people want to be, included actually. So, I was looking at His Holiness Dalai Lama's words that though people have access to material security, everybody gets to eat. In my country, of course, they may not even get to eat. But in most of these countries, everybody get to eat. Like from our residents, we do collect food and feed the homeless people, on Halloween day. But many people do that kind of stuff in addition to whatever the state provides to them. But universal hunger to be needed to the society and the economy fuels the anger. By not being part of the society, for not being part of the economy, fuels anger in people actually. So the loss of work and assets fuel the anger and discontent in the wake of uncertainties in the rich nations of the world. Okay? In the United States and Britain and across European continent, people appear to be agitated with anxiety about the future. They just don't have any idea as to what's going to happen to them. So, and the rich world is also becoming less compassionate. We seem to have become accustomed to sufferings elsewhere. Whether, currently, America is bombing about 7 countries on a regular basis. But their allies also keep bombing elsewhere. But, whether it is Damascus or whether it is Homs, whether it is Kabul or Lahore, Baghdad or Mogadishu or, innumerable places in Asia and Africa, we bomb the homes, the hospitals, the markets, hundreds of people die every single day. And we have become accustomed to see, okay, that's happening somewhere, that's not us. So the rich people everywhere, rich people in my country are far more closer to the rich people in Manhattan than my part of the city in the city. So the rich people everywhere and the rich nations thrive on the dispossession, poverty and sufferings of masses across the globe. And that is how 1% of world's population has control over the rest of the world, 99% of the wealth of this world. But how did they become? How did that 1% get to accumulate so much wealth? So the rich people everywhere and the rich nations thrive on dispossession, poverty, and suffering of masses across the globe. So the destruction of families, communities, nations for private profit has made the world a very dangerous place. Is Iraq anyway going to be safer? Starting from 1990 and then 10 years of sanctions and then further bombing from 2003 onwards, I think that nation, every day the number of people dying in Iraq is equivalent to the number of people died in Saddam's regime, maybe whole lot of years actually. But for what? What have we achieved? We have just simply brought in quite a lot of suffering to people, So this is what. Now at the end of the day, the world very dangerous place, but for whom? It's dangerous place for the poor people and the poorer nations. The climate change at the end of the day is not going to affect the rich people. Bangladesh is going to go underwater. Part of my country will go underwater. And much of the problems will be encountered by the poor people. That's why we are already working on mitigation and how do you enable them to deal with the problems actually. So we create problems for the people and they also deal with the consequences of that problem. I think that is what the world has become actually. It has become so fashionable that you don't look at the problem, you look away. That has become the norm actually. It's everywhere. My country here. So now this is where I will locate the President-elect Mr. Donald Trump and the BRIC exist are outcomes of the promise to reinvent nationalism and past glory. Now, what Britain would, reinvent the past glory, colonialism? Anyway, so globalization induced massive growth in number of unwanted people seems to have propelled Mr. Donald Trump's victory. He promised that you will have an identity. We will rework the globalization process. I think it's very good actually. I'm going to tell him that please take agriculture out of WTO. That would be the wonderful thing. We have been asking for it for a long time, so that, we get rid of these agribusiness companies, which fundamentally ruin the agriculture in my country, in everywhere. So what is happening is that a trend of the political right returning to power, sweeping away the left, along with it a lot of liberal ideas. That's what has happened actually. It happened in Britain, it happened in the United States, it happened in Argentina, in my own country, and Brazil. They all conform to the right-wing search. It is widely presumed that which will shortly consume Italy. They are almost there. France and Venezuela, of all the places, where Severs' successor dealing with rebellion of soon-to-be 4-digit inflation. What a nation! What has been done to that particular nation? I tell you that if Venezuela can go that route, Any other country can go that route. So this is the reality whereby we have the globalization process as such, which the West devised and implemented across the world to restructure the economy whereby open markets can be available to them, has created a context whereby a large number of people in each of these countries are out of work, unable to find job, unable to find education, because education is extremely expensive. Okay? In such a troubled world, now, can India emerge as a stabilizing force? This is the question, second part I am coming in. The world is extremely troubled. Not just the developing world which is being bombarded, which is in poverty and destitution, but it is also the developed world which is in trouble. Greece is a classic case. Italy is a classic case as to what you can do to a vibrant economy for the greed of some people. The greed of some people, you can destroy a nation. So my country's preamble reads that it would be a nation of democratic, socialist, and secular republic. Very interesting, actually. We are supposed to be democratic, socialist, and that too, which has been done away with, and secular republic. India, soon to be the world's populous nation, with over 1.3 billion people, can be a beacon of hope by realizing its constitutional promise, by being a truly liberal, democratic society that protects and honors the civil, political, and economic rights of all people. It is possible. How it is possible? That's what we are going to get into. But India is also a country full of contradictions. India holds within it a single nation, a huge diversity of culture, religion, caste, craft, language. The main fault lines of conflict in other societies are manifested in many times. In my own state, Tamil Nadu, if I go from one district to another district, the dialect changes. If I go to other state, I am very, very new because they speak different language. And the differences in terms of caste, in terms of religion, in terms of access to and control over means of production, you have enormous complications actually. But it is a country which did not overcome feudalism. We are still largely feudal, but then we have moved on to embarrassing the capitalism, market liberalism since 1991, tightly. In the process, we have consistently had over 7% growth rate, even when all over the world, the developed world, where they are having very low growth rate, India still has a growth rate of about 7%, and my government is working towards achieving it 10%. But still, in 2004-05 National Sample Survey, 77% of India's people are either poor or vulnerable. Why vulnerable? They are vulnerable fundamentally because they are just above poverty line. In a situation where healthcare has been completely privatized, education is unaffordable. For them, it takes only one illness to any of the family members to bring them below the poverty line. Did it change? Though the extremely poor is only 20.8%, the vulnerable is about 58%. They are just above. But in 2014, mind you, 2004 to 2014, we had an economic growth rate of about 7, 8, 9%. Did it happen? Did it do anything to poverty? No. In 2004, the picture remains the same. 20% of them are extremely poor, and 56% of them are vulnerable, according to 76% of the population. What we have done is that from that of 77%, we have reduced 76%. But mind you, during these 10 years of 2004 to 2014, the government's investment in education has declined. The government's investment in healthcare has declined. The privatization of the healthcare system has advanced so greatly. And so, if people are sick, they are really going to be poor. This is a data, you don't worry, actually, in 2004-05, there was an Arjun Sengupta committee report which Prime Minister Manmohan Singh set up in 2006, and this is what they came out with. And then this is the McKinsey report that, where 22% of them are poor and 56% of them are vulnerable, Now, but something very interesting happened. Interesting things happen in my country. Always. The NDA government, the National Democratic Front government, alliance government, which the Bharatiya Janata Party is the major constituent, they were in power from 2000 to 2004. So the UPA won, that is 2004 to 2009 and 2009 to 2014, they were elected twice. The UPA 1 and UPA 2 and the current NDA government, they have created, funnily, India is one country which created social security measures in rights framework. Right to work, 100 days of universal work available universally across the country. So broadly what is happening is that you have the social security program in rights approach, but it wouldn't help people. Same is the case with, so we have right to food. 5 kilograms of cereal would be available to every member of the family every month. Okay? So in other words, it's almost cheap. Free. So if you have 100 days of work, you are able to buy enough food from the public distribution system, and you would still have money for other purposes like healthcare and other things because food is cheap. So right to work, right to food, right to education, we took about 70 years, 60 years to bring in right to education. And we also have, some state governments have made right to skill also. Chhattisgarh government, one of my state governments, where, to access to hill is a right. You can sue the government for not skilling them. Nobody does. Okay? But the Rajasthan government has right to listen. In the sense that, how government officials will listen to poor people. Now they have created a law saying that I have a right that you listen. Do they listen? But the point here is that you have everything available. You have all these measures available in rights framework, and you can justice it. And this is all possible because strong civil society action with the activist Supreme Court, which continuously defined what is right to life. So the idea of right to life, which was ingrained in part of our constitution, that the government was, the Supreme Court was continuously able to redefine in a way whereby it brought right to work, right to food, right to education, all sorts of things actually. So that's the beauty of our nation. Now what is happening? I told you about the NREGA. If you go to, this entire system is computerized. So if I register once, my name will appear 4 times. 4 Parasuramans will be there. And all Parasuramans would have worked. But the fellow may have worked for just 15 days, for which money would not have come. I remember that we did the study for Kerala government. The most poorest people work. But they would need the money at the end of the day. So I remember that we were making a presentation to the Chief Minister of Kerala, and he had a good idea that it was webcast. As we were making presentation, it was webcast. And he brought all his officers. I said, the Chief Minister, the people were not getting money for several months. And when they have to go a long distance to the post office or the bank. And they go several times, so they spend more money than what they would collect. The Chief Minister immediately ordered that, you go to their homes and give the money. Some places it happens. So the leakage of welfare funds and corruption at all levels left people poor. And market liberalism has accentuated the vulnerabilities of a large majority of the people. How? Dispossession of rural people from lands and livelihoods. We take land for anything, for mining, to create special economic zones. But notwithstanding the social protection programs, state has reduced investment in health and education. Privatization of health and education services excluded a large majority of Indians. Massive outsourcing of work to the informal sector. In the sense that both public sector and private sector has outsourced a whole lot of work to contractors. So it deals with a small number of people. I tell my students, we have management program and we have social work program. My management students get, some 20 times more money than my social work students. I tell the students that those who go and work for capital, they get paid. But those who go to work for people, they get paid very little. But going to work with the people is the best thing you can do, so go and work. But this is the reality, actually. You honor something for no reason, actually. So, and massive outsourcing has happened. And so the informal sector or non-formal sector in my country accounts for 90% of all workers. They don't have social security at all. And throughout the 10-year period when the economy grew at about 7 or 8%, it was jobless growth. Manufacturing sector grew negatively. Investment grew at 200%, employment grew at minus 1%. Why? Because investment went into capital investment for technological enhancement. Thereby you just got rid of people, actually. So if you were to put together all these things, our governance system that doesn't make our social protection measures to work, and the market liberalism has made conditions extremely tough. So what is in my country is not very different from what is happening in the United States. But still India has all the ingredients to become a caring nation. This is where I come to the good story. What is happening in the country? The 1993 the constitutional amendment in my country brought local self-government to action. In other words, the local self-governments can now plan and implement the programs. Okay? We have a very vibrant civil society groups. Millions of women's and men's collectives are existing. And India is has the youngest population, actually. In the median age is 29.8 years, actually. So when everywhere, people would be old, like me, but my country would have very young people. Okay? So 356 million adolescents and youth, according to 2011 census, can be agents of economic, social, and political change. Now, how do we strengthen the participatory governance? I just made this, don't worry about this diagram, okay? What happens is that elected government, people elect the village panchayat, and they have the power to develop village development plan. And they have a right to bring together the whole range of social and economic and developmental programs available from the union government and the provincial government to be able to implement holistically. In other words, only if people have the elected leaders have the capacity to be able to plan and be able to work with the government to make those programs work. And my Prime Minister has created a new law, new program called, the Model Village Scheme. According to the scheme, the panchayats are empowered to plan, and the government is obliged to bring together all programs, converge it and make it work, and they should become model panchayats, model villages. Experiments are happening actually. I remember that I did a choice-based credit system course for my students. About 400 of them attended that course. What did I teach them? I taught them how do you help people to prepare village development plan. How do you prepare village development plan, and how can you put pressure on the government to make sure that those programs work? I tell you, there's lots of experiments happening actually. In many places it's working. Now, if it can work in some places, it can work in other places too. Okay, that is the point. The box in the middle says there is whole range of programs that can be brought together. And what is there in that corner is the people's ability to plan for the village and prioritize those and identify all resources that are available within the village from the government. My government also has brought in, Corporate Social Responsibility Act. Within that, each industry, both public and private sector industry, is supposed to contribute 2% of their net profit for welfare and development programs of the people. So, what is happening is that there are resources. This country has enough resources. This country has enough programs, but they don't work. And you have a participatory governance system which can make it work. But they need facilitators. This is one point I am going to park it. If you look at agriculture, 1/3 of the rural population is landless. And the average holding is about 1.16 hectare. It's a small piece of land people own. Small piece of land people own. It's very difficult to cultivate that particular land given that input costs are very expensive, like BT cotton or BT brinjal, BT, all those things, with Monsanto and others have come in. They have made life extremely difficult. Okay, so it's very expensive. So what is happening is that how do you make agriculture profitable for poor people is a big challenge. And what is happening is that 69% of the population is in rural areas. Agriculture plays a vital role in employment generation. Okay, agriculture. Rural areas has about 69% of the people, but agriculture contributes only 17% of the GDP. Whole lot of people are involved in and engaged in that. So there are experiments happening in the country. One of the experiments to deal with the impact of globalization and corporatization of agriculture is that farmers, producers organizations and farmer producer companies. What is happening is that a group of farmers coming together and they are pooling their land together and forming an association, organization and registering as a company. It is beautiful in the sense that instead of corporates coming and pulling together those land and giving, cultivating and taking away, what the farmers are doing is that then they are able to collectively apply for loan. Then they are able to hire a tractor to plow the land. because you can't plow a small piece of land, but if you have a collective land, you can plow it. They are buying seeds in bulk and distributing among themselves. And they are investing in non-farm activities. Like there is I wrote a paper, and in that paper I produced a case study which my university has done in one of the rural districts, and which shows that one village has gone into floriculture. And they harvest and export it to Hyderabad and Delhi. It costs less than ₹1 to produce a flower, that exotic flower, but they can get ₹4 when they sell it. Beautiful. And they have gone into floriculture, they have gone into water harvesting systems, they have gone into poultry, they have gone into various activities. So what is happening is that, good news is that the government of India has allocated a whole lot of money to National Bank for Rural Development. And National Bank for Rural Development, through NGOs, is supporting the farmers producer cooperatives. And they are able to deal with the market. Collectively, they can deal with the market because they store the food grains or whatever they produce and sell only when the food prices go up. Don't sell distress sale. So what is happening is that, in the district where one of my campus is working, the government asked us to do an evaluation of what is happening to the farmer producer cooperatives and companies. And I must tell you that 3 things happened. One is that they have moved away from water consuming crop to that of water preserving crops. Don't cultivate sugarcane. Go for cereals which doesn't need so much water. They have diversified their occupation into non-farm occupation, like dairy, like floriculture, like various other things they have done. And third, they have brought in landless people as integral part of the system, whereby whatever resources that are earned is equitably distributed in welfare programs in the village. Experiments are happening, and it is happening all over the country. And I would imagine that if one of the things I keep telling my fellow Vice-Chancellors is that put your students to work with the farmers. That is enough, actually. Like my students do in that particular district. The collector of that district, John, the collector is the chief administrator of a district which has about 1 million people or 2 million people. That fellow comes to my campus every evening. They don't go to campuses. Because my students and my faculty continuously work in that communities. By doing that, you are working with the farmers. Because you are working, you can put pressure on the officials. So basically, this is what one can do, and this is how it is happening actually. So the logic is that there are resources, small farmers are coming together to deal with the unviability of small farms, and in the process that they are able to create non-farm employment and increase their incomes, and they are able to deal with ill effects of the global agribusiness companies. Because they are able to cultivate their own seeds. Indian government has Farmers' Rights Act. But when Indian Parliament was discussing Farmers' Rights Act, my bureaucrats were already in Paris signing UPAV Act, the rights of agri-producers, agri-businesses. According to international law, that the rights of the agri-businesses, they override the nation's law of farmers' rights. But we tell our government that you hold on to at least your law, because Parliament is a sovereign institution. And so basically what happens is that using that particular provision, the farmers are producing seeds they are using themselves, they are also distributing to others, and government cannot do anything much because the farm, certainly it is their seed. So you can also deal with Monsantos and Cargills by enabling people to produce their own seeds, able to distribute it among themselves, exchange, use, store. Everything is happening. Now, self-help group movement is a very strong movement, actually. In 2016, there are 7.9 million small self-help groups in the country. Each group would have at least about 20 members. Imagine how many millions of people who are already on it. Now, most of them have linkages with the formal banking system. You used to have microcredit, groups came in. Of course, now, because of the ill effects of the microfinance, the governments have stopped them from entering into exploitative processes. So people have control over the resources they generate. So the ongoing collectivization and empowerment of women's groups and skilling them to access resources, initiate enterprises have great potential to eradicate poverty. If women can come together, and I tell you, we have several case studies done in several parts of the country, that women can come together and they would be able to manage their resources much, much better. When we went to women whose husbands have committed suicide because of the problem with the farming, almost all the women said, only if our men talk to us. Men are useless fellows. Only if our men talk to us, we would have told them, there is no need to commit suicide, we can deal with it. And women are dealing with it. Okay? In Kerala, Kerala is an outlier in my country. They have done everything which developed countries with lots of money have done. Their life expectancy is almost 80 years. Their literacy rate is about 100%. If a doctor doesn't come to a clinic, they will go on morcha next day. Okay? If the school building is not proper, they will make sure that it is properly done. Very enlightened people. In that state, you have the panchayats the powers are devolved very much. The government of Kerala has devolved about 60% of all the development funds to the village. They can plan and implement. And then the people, women's groups, they call themselves as Kudumbasri. Kudumba is family, managers of the family. The Kudumbasri groups, they work with the panchayats to make the developmental programs happen. I tell you, it's an amazing experiment that's happening out there. What we are doing is that we select these women and we offer them a diploma in, sustainable development. The point is that if these women are able to deal with their own power structure and able to bring in change, then let them get higher qualification and let them occupy higher positions. That is what we are trying to do. And, wherever we do small things, we want to expand it because we tell everybody, take it. Now, you need to harness the demographic dividend. India has about 12 million people in its workforce. Every year, we are 12 million people. But then only 2.2% of our workforce is skilled formally, compared to, 78% in Germany, 80% in Japan, and 50% in China. And all the BRICS countries do much better than India. So the Prime Minister has announced that by 2022, he wants to skill about 400 million people. But it's a very dicey thing, actually. Lots of people have gotten into skilling people. But when we looked at what is happening to the people who have been skilled, only 36% of them who have been trained between 2010 and 2015 are employed. It's like our university graduates. In India, only about 10 to 12% of the university graduates are employable. Why are they not employable? Because they get degree but no skills. So broadly what is happening is that, so Government of India told us, can you demonstrate a skill program that would provide employment? So TIS brought in what is called Vocational Education Model of, it is called Vocational Education Model of TISS. It is a work integrated program, whereby the apprenticeship model, whereby we bring in industries and training institutions where they are trained for 3 days and they go to work for remaining days. And the company pays them a stipend, so they are able to pay fees and take care of their families. So what we are demonstrating is that a self-propelling program independent of government support. And so because they are working while training, so they are employable. So we offer a certificate course, a diploma program, Bachelor of Vocational Education. This is a self-sustaining model. So a clearly defined and monitored curriculum and content, assessment and certification leads to quality outcomes. Otherwise, what is happening is that the Government of India's National Skill Development Council has created curriculum, but then the trainers use it the way they want to use it. We haven't developed a mechanism whereby we can assess the competencies of these people trained and able to certify. So this model of Tata Institute of Social Sciences is now going to be transferred to a university system. That is the promise we were asked to make to the Government of India, that now we have developed a proposal for National University Skill Development, Skill Development University, where the TIS model will be transported. And with that, my job is over. So basically what we are saying is that motivated and skilled young people can be agents of lasting change. In 2011, the Government of India was thinking about how to deal with the Maoist insurgency in about 64 districts of the country. Then the defense minister, he said, let's use the military force. But, some of us suggested that don't do that because it's not Cambodia. You are not Americans bombing in Cambodia or Vietnam. You are in your own country. You can't use that kind of model. Let security process go with the developmental process. So we developed a program called Prime Minister's Rural Development Fellowship Program. Prime Minister's Rural Development Fellowship Program. And we announced for 160 positions, some 8,600 applications came. And all of them came from some of our best institutions in the country. We selected them, trained for 3 months, and placed them in the Maoist affected districts. Because what happens is that, except in the district administrator, there is nobody with the knowledge how you can reach out to the people. In the process, what has happened is that they work with the communities, train the district level officials to work with the people so that development programs can reach people. I tell you, one of the things I am doing now is to write a book on that with all this. So I'll circulate that book when it comes out to you. Actually, now the experiment has been a great success. Now the Government of India has decided that it will recruit 600 fellows and put them in each district in the country. What I am telling is that you train 2 million people, young people, and place them with the participatory governance system so that they can work with communities to develop the villages. And they can deal with all sorts of things. They can deal with water, sanitation, health, education. Because people are there, they don't work. Resources are there, they are not being used. So this is the model which we are working on. So the India's solution is that it has young population. It can be trained and deployed. Less educated people can be skilled and put in villages. Better educated people. India has two programs. One is Make in India, whereby we want to create, like China did, to produce for the world. The another program is Make for India. When you have a population of 1.3 billion people, you can feed a lot of people actually. When US Congress brought in embargo on import of shrimp from several of my countries, Vietnam, Cambodia, Bangladesh had lots of problem. But Indians ate all shrimp. So whatever shrimp that was produced was eaten by Indians. So there was no problem. Americans can have their own policy of not letting our shrimp to come there. But it's a large country with 400 million people who are as rich as Americans. Rich people in America, they can eat a lot of food. What we are saying is that let us make all people to have access to food. And this is what I'm saying, that India has no business to have its poor people, primarily because it has resources. India has a strong self-governance system which can be strengthened. India has large young people who can be trained, capacity built. They can deal with the development, welfare, and manufacturing, as well as they can be the human resources for the world. Because even China will need. I'm a demographer. I have worked on population, all those stuff actually. That today our politicians will tell that it is good that we failed in family planning. Because we failed in family planning, we have enough people. But it's not too late actually. India is reaching a net reproduction rate of 1, in the sense that an average Indian couple would have only one girl child to replace the mother. So we are reaching a stability in population, but we have enough young people, and this is an opportunity whereby they can work for your own nation, and they can also facilitate human resources for other nations. Japanese don't need to deal with robots to deal with elderly people. Actually, we can produce lots of elderly workers for elderly people. That's what we are going to tell. So basically, what I am getting at is that a country which can address its population poverty problems, which is possible, because agriculture can be dealt with. Agriculture can become self-sufficient, and unfortunately, if Mr. Trump fulfill his vow that we can get agriculture out of WTO, so agriculture can survive. Manufacturing can grow, because it can, manufacturing itself can create about 10 million jobs. That is possible. And we need a lot of young people to work in our villages and slum areas to build the economic, social, water, sanitation conditions. And those who are well equipped, they can go to other nations, like they go to Gulf and America, Silicon Valley. So we are producing so many of them to go somewhere. So, and this nation is also, children are learning compassion. One of the courses I am developing currently with His Holiness Dalai Lama is on secular ethics. Is to get the young people to reinvent the idea of compassion and humanity. Why I am going to, once we develop it, I am going to present to the Vice-Chancellors and tell them you implement everywhere. So this is what, sir, yours is an engaged university. Ours is also engaged university. We have laboratories all over the country. And with that hope, I can say that India, with all its multiple problems and divisions, it can be a safe place. It can be a great hope because you need Indians. Every country is going to need our young people, and they are also going to work in our own state. And that way, I think, quite a lot of hope can be brought in. This is what the story I want to tell you. Thank you.
I want to end with 3 thoughts before we express our appreciation to Professor Parasuraman. The first, I will add that any movie with Shabana Azmi, because she is an SFU honorary degree recipient, and therefore you should certainly go to any of her movies. Secondly, it's interesting because I think people have put a construct from various perspectives of left and right and ideological views on some of the comments that have been made, and yet it occurs to me that Professor Parasuraman's construct and analysis about globalization is not all that different than that of The Economist. You may not want to hear that, but The Economist magazine trying to wrestle with what is a huge problem about how do we harness the benefits of globalization while at the same time ensuring that those benefits are widely shared, had said that part of the reaction we're now seeing is because countries didn't share those benefits widely enough. And truly the benefits that have come through expanding markets have not been felt in all of the places they might be, and now we're seeing some reaction to it, which is not all that different from your analysis. So you and The Economist are not that far apart on that. And finally, I just want to say that having visited the Tata Institute of Social Sciences 2 times now, and been in Mumbai more than that, while we at SFU and you in India obviously have very different contexts and very different situations in which we operate, there are a lot of points in common. Simon Fraser University, for example, through our co-op program, is very focused on providing our students not only a great academic education, but skills development, which you've made a huge priority. We work very closely with communities to help empower and support community development. And I could get any number of examples, but the one that comes to mind is some of the work we've done on the Mid-Coast with the Haisla First Nation to try to help them with their economic development. And a lot of the work you're describing, I think we would describe in terms of social innovation. And I invite any of you walking down Hastings Street to check out our new Innovation Center, which houses radical ideas useful to society. Radical only so far as we haven't thought of them before. And there are things where we can actually benefit society using education, empowering young people, connecting with community. That's what I hope our engaged university is about, and one of the reasons I've been so excited to form a relationship with Professor Parasuraman in his capacity as Vice-Chancellor and with his institution is I think there's a lot of things that we can do together to support each other in that shared endeavor. And with those thoughts, I want to thank, on your behalf, ask you to thank Professor Parasuraman for a very stimulating lecture.